Hi, and welcome back to Tuesdays with Tuesday. I'm Tuesday, and I'm here to read to you from my book, Taste, which is book 1 in the Tearaway series. The ebook is free right now as of the recording of this video, so you can download the ebook for free, and you can read ahead, or you can read along with me, or you can just let me read to you. All the options are good. It's also available on paperback and hardcover and audiobook. I don't read the audiobook, for which you will be grateful. The audiobook reader is incredibly talented, and she does like the voices and the accents and all the amazing things. I just read in my regular voice because you do not want to hear me do a British accent. It sounds Jamaican and not good. So today we are reading chapter 18. If you have not read the first 17 chapters, I encourage you to go back and listen to or watch the first 17 videos of me reading to you. But for now, I will read to you. So get cozy. If you have an animal, get an animal. They are the best to snuggle with while someone reads to you. Chapter 18. October Grace, Queen of the Mud. I landed with an ungraceful thud on squishy mud and immediately began to sink several inches. Mud. Mud between my fingers. Mud all over my clothes. Mud seeping into my shoes. Mud covering my open wounds. Langham said something to me, but my ears felt filled with cotton. So overwhelming was the state of my shock. My breath caught in my throat, choking me with terror. All the dirt in the world I tried to avoid seemed to have congregated here and turned itself into mud to bathe me in my own personal hell. No, 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 no. I chanted the one word over and over as often as the oxygen would permit. I didn't have to look at myself to know I was rocking back and forth. I couldn't feel my body anymore, but I knew my patterns of destruction. The poor dummy who abducted me didn't know the crazy he'd brought into his world. My mind was paralyzed in a state of shock I hadn't been confronted with in a while. I'd been doing so well, but half a day off my meds didn't help me fend off the crazy I knew was always waiting to take me over. I couldn't get up. I couldn't feel my face. I couldn't feel anything through my haze of OCD terror. I'm pretty sure someone was talking to me, but I couldn't process the garbled words and turn them into language. My body started to melt from its rigid hold when I felt that same warm touch I'd been introduced to in the basement. My chest began to contract again, and I felt the relief of my many issues with dirt and germs taking a full step back so I could breathe. My neck was granted flexibility again, so I craned my head up to find Vaughn checking my arms and legs for a reason why I hadn't picked myself up yet. Vaughn? I worked out, my voice uncharacteristically tremulous. There you are. I was afraid you'd gone batty for a second there. Are you hurt? I don't think so, but I was covered in mud from the waist down. Germs skittered all over my body, infiltrating my pores with who knows what kind of leprechaun flu. I can feel all this, you know. When I touch you, I can sense your anxiety. This seems to be registering worse than being tied to a chair, yeah? Let me take some of it away, or we'll never make it through this. I have to wash my hands, I fretted, though I was covered in mud, so I really needed an antibacterial shower of some sort. I wasn't sure if I consented or not, but suddenly Vaughn's filthy hands were touching mine. The squish of the mud between our fingers made my neuroses flare up before he sucked a little of my alarm out. Then finally my shoulders slumped, and I began to see a little more clearly. My chin started trembling, but when Vaughn saw this, I bit down on my lower lip to try and appear mildly put out, instead of as if I was on the brink of a panic attack. Vaughn pulled a little more, and I was able to exhale a few of my demons. Wow, that's insane. I actually feel a little better. You should bottle that magic. Thank you. I looked down at my ruined jeans in disbelief. If only Ollie could see me now. I'm filthy, I remarked, startled. I'm filthy and lucid. That's a first. It's just a spot of bother, nothing more, Vaughn assured me with unswerving kindness in his eyes. I've been in rows far tougher than this, and I always manage a way out. We'll be all right. My head whipped around as I tried to catch up and put any measure of sense to being sucked through a concrete floor into another dimension, an alien planet. I looked around at the rural huts to my right and began to wish for David Duchovny and a road map. All I had was that Prince Langham jag who abducted me and was staring at me like I was being the problem because I wasn't on my feet. Tearaway, I guessed. We were near a village of thatched roof huts. Prince Langham was standing a few feet from us, agitated that his captives weren't moving fast enough for his liking. Vaughn's closed expression showed no signs of playfulness. Up you get, then. Not to worry, I'll get us out of here. He held tight to my gloppy hand to ensure we endured the alternate universe together. It's okay, we're just in Sakuna. He hoisted me up, leaving one arm around my waist to support me, as my limbs took their sweet time recalling their usefulness. Normally I would shy away from such intrusive and intimate contact, but as I looked around, I knew that I needed something to hold me upright. The entire vast world was covered with deep mud, so that there was nothing green in the rural area that I could see. I looked up and gasped at the duo anomalies hanging low in the sky with horror. Under better circumstances, I would have been enraptured with the wonder. 2 suns. This world had 2 suns. It looked to be early evening here, and I wondered what kind of time zone difference we were dealing with. Because, when you get abducted, time zones are the only thing you should be worrying about. I internally shook my head at my scattered brain. Do you have the Sagrado Stone? Vaughn demanded, his voice turning sharp. I don't even know what that is, so I'm guessing that's a big fat no. He deflated, his shoulders relaxing. Figures. He cast a look of loathing at Prince Langham. You would have said anything to throw me off my guard, yeah? She doesn't have it. All this was for nothing. The omens aren't your jurisdiction. You're stepping on Ezra's territory, and he won't take kindly to that. If you're taking her to King Jian, she'll not move another inch. Let Ezra punish me then. I don't care anymore. I can't wait another day for her to get on the job. And of course I'm not taking her to my father. I'm not insane. I want her to actually work. Dude, I was unconscious, I countered, affronted at the slam on my work ethic. I stumbled in the muck that was seeping into my shoes and polluting my socks. When I looked up, there was an ocean in the far distance that lapped against the muddy shore under the setting suns. Their suns were 2 slow-burning flames that licked the spheres with white, blue-tipped tongues, making the atmosphere suddenly unbearably hot with a thick layer of sticky humidity. The oxygen was thick, or was thin, too thin to take a deep breath. It felt like the density of the air atop a mountain. It was oppressively humid, and the air itself was laced with too much heat to feel refreshing when I sucked a heavy drag into my lungs. There were trees with brown leaves around us, but they were gnarled and bent at odd angles, looping through each other and pushing through the thatched roofs of the huts. I scratched the backs of my hands, terrified at being taken to a place not of my own choosing. Vaughn kept his arm looped around my hips and clutched my hand with his to stop me from hurting myself. It was decent of him. Of all the strange things in this new world, that one was near to the top. Despite the kindness, I tugged my hand out of his grip. I don't do hand-holding. Vaughn molded my arm around his waist and kept his arm tight around me to hold me close. Head tilted to the side to speak low in my ear. You're going to break the skin if you keep scratching yourself. Oh, right. I'm sorry. My neuroses I'd never managed to get under wraps was now a life-or-death vulnerability. I clung to Vaughn's belt, wanting this whole thing to just be over already. I tried not to enjoy the strange feeling in my stomach at being sucked into Vaughn's side so intimately. Vaughn reached into his boot with his free hand and pulled out a knife. Like being transported to another dimension was nothing he hadn't prepared for. His voice was filled with edge and bite when he finally spoke. What was your plan, mate? Abduct your food supplier? How is she going to help the kingdom down here? Langham turned to us, his black feathery eyebrows furrowed as dozens of flies buzzed around him. She has to see who she's doing this for. Lady Mariang hasn't seen our devastation in years. My people are dying while she rests. He stomped off through the sludge, expecting us to follow. Vaughn's upper lip curled. Mariang rests because she's dying. You know that. You're just being impatient, taking the new omen before the rest of the council even have the chance to meet her. He clutched my hip and moved us forward, our shoes sticking in the sloppy mess. Bile rose up in my throat, but before I could vomit out my anxiety, I felt that same slow trickle of Vaughn draining the worry out of me. Vaughn didn't seem to need to focus all that much to help me out, and didn't miss a beat of his argument with Prince Langham. You've got mere minutes to return us topside. You know Ezra will send in soldiers once he'd figure out where you've taken us. That sounds like a threat, Langham snarled, casting Vaughn a sidelong glance. You should know better than that. And you should know better than to wage an attack on Ezra's home, steal an omen, and expect everything to turn out fine just because you bloody say so. I wanted to voice an opinion as we all trudged forward, but I had no words. I decided to keep my mouth shut and gather information as Langham spoke. I'll return you both as soon as this girl understands. Words mean nothing. Seeing is the motivator. He narrowed his eyes when he saw Vaughn's knife still drawn. You'll put that away, half-vamp. Are you trying to make your life expectancy even shorter? Living just long enough to see you beg for mercy is plenty of time for me. I winced when 7 cockroaches climbed out of Langham's mouth and skittered down his body into the muck. Do it. Run me through. You bleed me, my family will see to it you're drawn and quartered, and then hanged just for the fun of it. We'll send the pieces to your family one at a time so they have plenty of opportunity to miss you. I popped my hand to Langham's chest, satisfied when he moved back a step. Quit trying to get in the last threat, or the biggest threat. Be nice, or I'll be less than cooperative. Vaughn squeezed my hand in solidarity. It's all right, love. Prince Langham's just jealous. See, if I cut him into pieces and sent him to his family, they wouldn't shed a single tear. Ezra cares for him more than his own father does. And how does he repay Ezra? He abducts his future stepdaughter right out of the man's home. Genuine, that one. Langham fumed, his fists clenched in anticipation of throwing the first punch. I worried what the outcome might be if the two came to blows. It's fine, Vaughn. Let's just get this over with. We made our way to a cluster of huts nearer the shore, pausing when Langham bent down to snatch up a yellowish root growing up out of the mud. He displayed it to me and then chomped down on it. This is what we in Tearaway survive on. It only grows here, and only if the suns don't scorch it the second it springs up. A few years ago, the buhay would grow taller than me. Now we can barely get it to sprout more than a few inches. We passed another small shoot, and Langham pocketed it, saving it instead of shoving it in his mouth. When we reached the huts, I waited while Langham bellowed for the people inside to join him. I gasped when painfully thin, bronze-skinned people trickled out. There was a family with a young child whose ribs were sticking out. Next to them stood a man and his pregnant wife whose hips were too bony to support the added weight of a fetus. The handful of men filtered out, all bare-chested and in filthy shorts to combat the heat. They saw Langham and bowed on both knees, even the pregnant woman, who needed her husband to support her as she pressed her knobby knees into the muck. Prince Langham motioned to the growing crowd that was around 30 people now. These are some of the citizens of Sakuna. One soul is enough to regulate our suns, giving us enough buhay for the day to sustain our whole country. It doesn't take much, but without it, we starve. Langham put his filthy hand under my chin and jerked it up so my shocked eyes bored into his. Are you understanding any of this, tiny human? I twisted my face from his grimy grip. Don't touch me. Langham's glare was fierce and seemed almost on par with the heat from the suns. I knew I was supposed to look away and cower, but I didn't. I couldn't. I'd done enough cowering in my childhood. On your knees, Duende, Langham commanded Vaughn. Vaughn didn't move, so I stood with him, unsure what I was supposed to be doing. Don't you dare kneel, October. Your station is above Prince Langham's. Don't let him make you feel otherwise. I glared at Langham. Wasn't planning on it. You should kneel, Langham growled at Vaughn. You should make me. I'm her reaper, so my station's not quite so lowly anymore. Langham snarled at the two of us and turned to his people, who were now 40 strong on their knees. I want you to remember the faces of my people when you want to complain about the toils of your new post. Lives depend on you doing your job. He nodded to the citizens, who looked up at him with the hope one might save for their white knight. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a bouquet shoot, handing it to the pregnant woman, who took it with a sob of gratitude. This is the new omen? One of the men asked, his voice gravelly. It is. I brought her here to show her the people she'll be saving, and so you all could see the woman you owe your gratitude to. At this, they bowed their heads to me, bobbing them up and down as they thanked me for work I didn't even fully understand yet. My breathing was already shallow. Filling my lungs was an arduous task with the oppressive heat and the thick air. No, please don't do that. Get up, honestly. My fingertips and lips started to tingle, and I knew I couldn't deal with this all much longer. I absolutely refused to pass out in front of the dangerous prince and his subjects. I glared at Langham for putting me in such an awkward position, trying not to lose my nerve at the flies that began to swarm around him, ready to obey his commands. Bev's trailer had trained me well not to fear bugs, so I let Ollie's constant wisdom of keep your chin up, take it slow, hold me in place. Take us home, Lang. Lang gritted his teeth at my command. I could tell that my lack of a please or you're the handsomest, strongest prince in the world grated on Lang, as did the shortening of his name, so I made sure to treat him like an equal even more just to piss him off. Flies buzzed around us, a few landing in Vaughn's hair. I brushed my filthy fingers through the tousled follicles, softening when Vaughn leaned his head into my muddy palm. I was shocked at my own daring, braving the innumerable germs that crawled around on a person's head just so Vaughn wouldn't be so uncomfortable. I was starting to like this whole pulling thing. It was like I could almost feel Vaughn's unspoken needs more than the foghorn that was my OCD. That kind of clarity felt like a fresh breath, and Lord knows I hadn't breathed in a long time. Normally I wasn't a big public display kind of a girl, but this whole world was turning me upside down. Vaughn's arm curled around my waist, bringing me tight to his side to ensure we got out of this mess together. Whatever percentage of vampire he was, I could tell he didn't want to be here any more than I did. When Langham didn't respond, my tone turned sharp. Take us home now! I heard a barking in the distance that I assumed was a dog fighting with its chew toy. When I saw the terrified looks on the people's faces, I knew something was wrong. Into your huts! Langham cried, his tone laced with a note of worry. I didn't realize it was that time of the evening yet. Hurry! The people scattered, grateful they were about to escape whatever fate awaited them if they stayed out in the open, like we were. The omen! Cried a little boy who looked no more than 5. He was all bones with big eyes, wearing only shorts. Your Majesty, she can hide with us! Langham gave the boy a grateful nod and shooed Vaughn and me off to follow the boy. The animal's barking grew louder, and soon grew into grunts and throaty growls that were too vicious to be playful. Before we reached the hut, I turned and saw Langham helping the pregnant woman to her hut with her husband. They were only halfway there when the beast in question came into view. This was no dog. I couldn't tell if it was a hornless, hairless, misshapen goat or a large reptilian crow hybrid. Its forelegs were 5 times as long as its hind legs. It had giant green, scaly bat wings, goat ears, and a long, pointy chin with a bauble of hair hanging from it. The teeth were long and sharp, like if Edward Scissorhands had snaggly, jagged teeth to match his hands. Instead of hooves, he had claws that looked ready to tear off the pregnant lady's head. He sort of looked like a janky miniature dragon. totally precious in his weirdness. He had a rope around his neck with sacks of something hanging from it, banging into his scale-covered chest with every bound. "Get in the hut!" Lang called to us. I could see genuine fear for the pregnant woman and his people on his face. I knew he was the kind of criminal who regretted the kidnapping and reneged halfway through. I wasn't totally sure what the plan was. I mean, I'd never seen anything like it. I knew Langham wouldn't be able to get the woman to her hut in time, so I ran back out toward the open land, ignoring Vaughn and the little boy who warned me to come back. I'm not sure if I was hoping Edward Scissorteeth would eat me instead. All I knew was that I couldn't sit back and watch a pregnant woman get attacked. I snatched a 2-foot-long stick off the muddy ground and ran at Edward, holding the stick like a bat. I was ready to do some serious damage. "No, get back here!" Vaughn shouted from the doorway of the hut. Bruce Campbell wouldn't have run. My favorite movie star would have faced the demons head-on, boomstick in hand. I summoned my inner monster slayer and gritted my teeth against the attack, wishing I had good old Bruce by my side. Lang turned his head in my direction and gasped, eyes wide. He abandoned the pregnant woman to her husband and charged toward me. The Rock, albeit the muddy, dirty, slimy version, in slow motion. Lang's voice boomed across the expanse with a panicked, "No!" And that brings us to the end of chapter 18. I am so glad we're doing this. I am not a huge out loud reader. Actually, in high school and probably middle school as well, and definitely in college, really did not care for being chosen to read out loud. I felt like if I made a mistake, people would know that I am not smart, and that would be something that would be a make or break moment in my life, which, you know what? It never was. All the things we fear generally are bigger in our minds than they are in real life. So thank you for letting me face one of my fears and read to you. What a silly fear. So if you want to read ahead, you can get the ebook, or you can get the audiobook, paperback, hardcover, pretty much anywhere you buy books online. And I will see you next Tuesday for Tuesdays with Tuesday when we read chapter 19.